what's a principle or a philosophy about leadership that you firmly believe in and live by? And then what's the story behind it?
There is something my parents told me when I was really young, and it lives with me like every moment of my life, which is they told me, if you do what you say you're going to do, you're going to be better than 95% of the people out there. And I didn't really understand it in the moment. And now I look back on it, I'm like, I think the number is higher than 95%, if I'm being honest. So often we don't follow through on what we say we're going to do. And it's frustrating when you're on the other side. I think it diminishes your word and the trust that you have. And so I'm not saying we're perfect, and I'm not saying we can always do exactly what we're saying we can do, but we can be honest when we realize we can't. And I just think that, like, as leaders, we need to empower our team members to be honest and speak up when they know something is right or wrong or not going the way we want, so we can be as transparent as possible with the people we're serving. Whenever I'm at like that crossroads, I'm always like, okay, what did I say I was going to do? Okay, well, that's what I got to do. And if I can't do it, I need to honestly tell the person I can't and why I can't, even if that's going to suck. That's
super fascinating. And I mean, I hadn't thought about it the way you just framed it until you just said that. I'm like, wow, I bet you're right. It is a better than 95% probability. How do you coach people in that regard? How do you teach people? How do you instill or install this behavior in those that you lead, Nolan?
Well, I don't know if it's actually annoying, but as a leader, I don't often tell my team members what to do. So what I will do is I will ask them two questions when I need something done. The first one is, this is what I'm trying to do. Is that reasonable? And then the second question is, if it is reasonable, when can you have it done by? Now, that doesn't mean that I just accept whatever they say. I don't want to give that impression, but I want them to make the commitment, not me tell them what the commitment has to be. Because then it's about them owning what they said. And if they don't do it, it kind of removes the ability for them to come back and go, well, I couldn't do it because that was an unreasonable request, or I didn't have enough time. It's like, well, you set both of those. At no point did I tell you what you had to do. You told me what you were going to do. And at every opportunity, you could have told me that was not possible, or you could have changed it or said something else, and you didn't. And so it's funny because when you first do that with someone, it makes them very uncomfortable. Like, you ask someone to commit to something, they don't want to do it because they're like, I don't know. Is this like too hard? It's like, just tell me what you think you can honestly do. It's okay. We'll have a conversation about it if I don't think it's reasonable. You tell me something that you can't commit to. So part of it is like helping them take ownership in that communication process, but it's also about helping them understand that it is a conversation, and it isn't just about me dictating. It's about, you can speak up, you have a voice. I'm trusting you that you will say things when you see them, and that I will be respectful of that when you do. I'm very big on making sure people feel heard and seen, both my team and my clients. And so I'm very intentional, or try to be, about ensuring I show up that way and that they feel that.
Was this a practice that you developed on your own, or is this something you picked up from someone along the way? Because I could not agree with you more on the way you're approaching this, and I love that. Is this here's what I'm thinking. Is it reasonable? And then what can you commit to doing? I have a firm belief that, we often talk about accountability as something we do to people, and I have an inverse perception on accountability, in that I think accountability is nothing more than the honoring of mutual commitments. And it's someone has committed to do something, and then I, as the leader or the manager, have committed to follow up. And if they don't do their part, I'm going to do mine. And if I have to do mine, then we have we've got to understand why there was a breakdown. But how did this practice come to you?
I worked for someone after I left public accounting, and I think he got kind of a bad rap for being a tyrant. Although, I mean, he had very high expectations, but he would always ask three questions: what has to be done? Who's going to do it? When is it going to be done by? And you learned very quickly that if you couldn't answer those questions, it was going to be a very uncomfortable conversation. And so you just got conditioned to have that ready for you. And so I think to some extent, that's certainly an influence on that, maybe in a slightly different way. But I also think a large part of it is I try to balance what I would want in a moment with what someone else wants in a moment, right? So there's the old do unto others as you would have done unto you. I think that's important. But the most respectful thing is like, do what other people want you to do for them, right? Like so what we want isn't always what someone else wants. And that doesn't invalidate what they want just because we want something different. So I try to always kind of keep in mind, like, well, what would I want? And then what do I know about this person? What would they want? And try to kind of like balance those two against each other. So I think it's kind of a combination of personal experience on my own and then sort of like working in that situation.
That's interesting. You know, it's so easy for us to default into what do we want or what would we want, and that more broad lens of what would they want. You know, if I'm sitting in their seat, what do I think they want? That's so powerful because it's not about us. It's about creating the value prop or whatever it is we're trying to build. And so often we get stuck in our own little heads and we get stuck in behind our own lens, and we forget that, you know, there's a bigger world out there beyond that.
I think that for a lot of business owners, they are their ideal client. Like the business is built around what they want. And I think there's value in that. Like I don't say that to dismiss it. I think though that what we tend to forget is that we evolve as people, and that then can most likely shape how we view what we do, because we're changing. And so we then start to change our offer to match what we want. And we forget that, like, well, that's just one person out there, right? Like, what is your actual audience asking for? Like, what do they want? Do they like what you're giving them? If so, like, you don't necessarily need to evolve and change just because you are.
That's a really good point, because as we grow and learn as leaders, you know, we have a tendency, maybe stop saying we, I don't want to accuse you of this. I have a tendency to assume that everybody's growing at the same rate, wants the same things, and then therefore, you know, is interested in the same things I am, and forget that everyone's at a different place in their journey and in their name and space. I was just last week recording something as I was thinking through the value of a beginner's mindset. And we often forget that, there I go using we again. I often forget that there's so much value in going back to the fundamentals, the basics, and then, you know, really grabbing that beginner's mindset so that I don't get wrapped up around my own axle of knowledge and growth.